And joining us right now, Bret Baier from Fox News Channel, of course, the host of Special Report with Bret Baier. Always good to check in with Bret on Friday. Hey, Bret.
Good morning.
So, I got to ask you about these comments. I mean, listen,
you know why he's doing this now.
Why is that?
He always gets tired of being our last interview of the week when we're all silly.
True.
I thought I'd step it up a little bit.
But it's too late because we're already silly.
I'll
today.
bring the silly.
Okay, bring the
Dance
silly.
party intro, I got the clue.
Bret, listen, this story of the Nevada rancher, of course, it captured so many people's attention with the stunning images of these citizens, armed citizens, standing up against federal agents, and it is a very confusing story for a lot of people. It involves land rights. It involves how the federal government owns property in western states and how they treat certain states differently than others. Very complicated. But yesterday, these odious, bigoted words coming out of Cliven Bundy's mouth, they sort of sucked all the oxygen out of the story, and now it's all about Cliven Bundy being a bigot. Will the larger questions that were raised by this now get sort of overshadowed by this one narrative?
They have for the time being on this particular case. He lost a lot of supporters by what he said, and our panel obviously panned those comments, and obviously I think the story took a ugly turn over the past couple of days. That said, I think the bigger issue of government and the use of government and how far it goes is still going to be an issue that comes up. But in the case of this rancher, I think he lost a lot of support.
I'm reading that you had a big interview yesterday with Netanyahu. And, of course, the big news was that the Israelis pulled out of the peace negotiations with the Palestinians after the Palestinians decided to form some sort of coalition government involving Hezbollah. What did you get from Netanyahu? What was on his mind? Yeah,
I mean, basically he wanted to get out that Mahmoud Abbas, with the decision he made to merge, essentially, not merge, but have an accord with Hamas, essentially got to the point where it killed the peace process, that it's dead, that they can't move forward with partners that half of them want the destruction of Israel and launch missiles against Israel. I mean, that was his main message, but secondarily, I mean, we talked a lot about Iran and his concern about the peace talks, that essentially he believes they may be watered down, some of these negotiations, and if Iran continues to have the capacity to get to a nuclear weapon, in other words, has the capacity to flip the switch in a short amount of time, that they will be able to do that, he believes, in a matter of months. It was fairly interesting to listen to him talk about the Iran talks and how concerned and disappointed he's been thus far.
Well, that was also sort of a blow to the Obama administration, who had been very involved in trying to get both sides together, had a lot of skin in the game. They weren't able to keep everybody at the table.
Yeah, and that is a big question. What happens if Iran just continues to move forward while these negotiations are ongoing in Geneva? As we've seen the same thing, it's not been a great stretch in foreign policy. Even supporters of the Obama administration will concede that some of it is circumstance and what's happening around the world, but other parts of it really have been, the actions or inactions of the administration on a number of different fronts, and that's a big issue.
And to that end, Bret Baier, we've got a headline in the New York Times today: Obama suffers setbacks in Japan and the Middle East. Headline by Dana Milbank, of all people, in the Washington Post. Overseas, President Obama projects a whole lot of nothing. This for a president who promised so much in his presidency in terms of goodwill. You remember the images in Berlin and the screaming throngs. This, as you said, people who generally support him are concerned about how this is transpiring here for this administration. Will it end up touching Hillary Clinton as well, since she's running as this victorious Secretary of State?
Well, it could. I mean, if you start doing, and they will, the breakdown of Hillary Clinton's tenure as Secretary of State and what exactly was accomplished in the shadow of the Obama administration having some real difficulties on the foreign policy front. And remember, a second-term president often thrives and enjoys the spotlight of going abroad and focusing on foreign policy. This has not been a great run.
No, it's really not.
On a number of fronts, and I think that does reflect Secretary Clinton. At some point, it'll be an ad or come up in a debate. if she runs.
All right, I listen. I've got to ask you. I'm really excited to watch this thing. You've been talking about it a little bit, and that is this special that you have upcoming about the National Security Agency. At one point, they called it no such agency. They didn't even acknowledge that it existed, and now you're going there to do a special report.
Yeah, it's an hour we've been working on for a number of months, and you remember I interviewed General Alexander while he was still in the post, and as NSA director. We've done a number of interviews with supporters, with whistleblowers, with lawmakers who want to reform the thing. It's really going to be expansive, I think, in a very fair and balanced way to look at the NSA, what it does, what it doesn't do, and the controversies around it. So that's coming up. I'm going to get a date for you, but I think it's going to be next weekend.
All right. And, I'm told it's next weekend. Bret Baier, silly time. As promised.
Oh, you had to go there.
I do. This Buffalo Bills cheerleader story. It keeps popping up. Yes. Exactly. This is why I wanted to ask you, because you're a good media commentator, and it's not just Fox News. Every cable station seems to be focusing on the Buffalo Bills cheerleaders, the disputes they're having. The story has advanced now. The Buffalo Bills cheerleaders announced today that they have suspended operations. But objectively speaking, if this were the Buffalo Bills hot dog vendors, would it be such a big cable news story?
Well, I don't know the story, but I can imagine that cable networks, a controversy over cheerleaders.
Well, you can be sure of one thing, Bret Baier. I think you and I, though we adore him and respect him, we know Cavuto's going to be all over this.
Yeah. I can imagine the bump out to commercial.
Well, unbelievable. Well, listen, let me just take this opportunity to let everyone know that today on Washington's Drive at 5, we will have a former Raider cheerleader joining us to discuss this issue. But it's radio. We're here to talk about the ideas.
In-depth on the story.
Exactly.
It's radio.
It's not about the B-roll that you run. Bret, have a great weekend.
You too.